You are negotiating right now. You were negotiating yesterday, and you almost certainly lost. Most men think negotiation is a thing that happens in a room, with a contract on the table and someone in a suit across from them. It isn't. It happens every time two people want different things: your pay, your rent, who gives way in your own house, who ends up doing the work nobody wants. It happens constantly, and it is almost never called negotiation, which is exactly why you keep losing it. And you lose it for one reason. You think the man who argues best wins. He doesn't. The man who needs it less wins. Everything else is decoration. Understand what that means. It explains every time you walked out of a room with less than you went in for. You were not outsmarted. You were not out-talked. You simply wanted it more, and they could tell. So let's take this apart properly, not with tricks. Tricks are for men who have already lost the important part, with the thing underneath the tricks. Start with the only real power there is in any deal. Not charm, not confidence, not the ability to talk, the ability to walk away. The people who studied this most seriously were at Harvard, and they gave it a name: your best alternative. Not what you want, what you will actually do if this falls apart. Fisher and Urey argued that this single thing, your alternative, decides your strength before anyone opens their mouth. Everything else is theater performed on top of it. Now be honest about your own life. When you last asked for a raise, what was your alternative? Not your fantasy, your actual, specific, Monday morning alternative. Did you have another offer? Did you have savings that let you say no? Did you have anything at all except the hope they'd be reasonable? Most men have nothing. They walk into the room with one option, which is not a negotiation. That is a request. And the other side knows immediately. They do not need to interrogate you. A man with somewhere else to go moves differently. He is unhurried. He is comfortable when the conversation stalls. He is capable of ending it. A man with nowhere else to go leans in, fills every gap, and takes the first number he is given because he is terrified of the silence that follows saying no. You have been that second man, probably many times. Sun Tzu made this point about war 25 centuries ago, and it is the least understood thing he ever wrote. He argued that battles are decided before the armies meet, by preparation, position, and information. The fighting is where the outcome gets collected, not where it gets decided. Every man who thinks he lost because of what he said in the room has the sequence backwards. He lost weeks earlier, when he failed to build somewhere else to stand. So here's the first move, and it is not clever. It is slow, unglamorous work that hardly any man does. Before you ever sit down, build the alternative. Get the second offer. Save the money that lets you say no. Line up the other supplier. Find the other buyer. You are not doing this to use it. You are doing it because a man who can leave and a man who cannot are two different animals, and everyone in the room can smell the difference. You do not win a negotiation at the table. You win it beforehand, by building somewhere else to go. Now, assume you have to negotiate anyway, without the leverage you should have built. Most of the time, that is exactly where you'll be. Then the game becomes information, and you have been giving yours away for free your entire life. Watch what an ordinary man does when he sits down. He explains. He gives his reasons. He tells them what he needs and why he needs it. He mentions his deadline. He mentions his budget. He tells them, without ever quite saying it, how badly he wants this. He believes he is being open and honest and reasonable. He is being read. Every piece of information you hand over is a lever the other side can pull. Tell them you need it by Friday, and they will slow down until Thursday. Tell them your budget, and the price will find it. Tell them how excited you are, and you have just informed them that you will pay more rather than lose it. You did not lie to them. You did something worse. You told them the truth without asking for anything in return. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone before or since. He argued in The Prince that what matters in public life is not what you are, but what you appear to be, because men judge by what they can see, and very few ever see past it. He was not recommending dishonesty. He was making a colder observation. Your inner state is invisible until you broadcast it, and broadcasting it is a choice. Most men broadcast constantly and call it being genuine. The strategic man does the opposite, and it does not require deception. He simply asks more than he tells. He asks what their timeline is. He asks what happens if they can't reach a deal. He asks what their last supplier got wrong. He asks, and then he shuts up and lets them talk, because the man who is talking is the man giving things away. And here's the part that will feel physically uncomfortable the first time you do it. When they name a number, say nothing. Not a long speech, not a counter-offer, nothing. 4 seconds of silence, which will feel to you like a minute and to them like an accusation. Most people cannot tolerate it. They will fill it. And what comes out of a man filling silence is almost always a concession, a justification, or a piece of information he never intended to give you. You have felt this from the other side. Someone said a price. You paused because you were thinking, and they immediately said, "But there's some flexibility on that." You weren't even negotiating. You were just quiet, and the quiet did the work. The man asking questions is not being polite. He is loading a weapon. And the man who cannot sit in silence will pay for the privilege of ending it. Now the deeper part, because information and leverage will get you most of the way, and then you will hit the thing that stops almost everyone. A human being who feels attacked stops thinking about the deal and starts thinking about winning. This is where the average man destroys himself. He builds a case. He assembles his reasons like a lawyer. Here is why I deserve this. Here is what I have done. Here is why you are wrong. He believes that if the argument is strong enough, the other person will simply have to agree. They won't. Nobody in the history of the world has been argued into changing their mind on something they cared about. The stronger your case, the harder they defend, because now agreeing with you means admitting they were wrong, and men will pay real money to avoid that. Chris Voss spent years as the FBI's lead international kidnapping negotiator, in rooms where losing the argument meant somebody died. And the thing he kept finding was the opposite of what you'd expect. You do not move a man by defeating him. You move him by making him feel understood. He calls it tactical empathy, and the word tactical is doing serious work there. This is not kindness. It is not being nice. It is recognizing that a man who feels heard drops his guard, and a man with his guard down is reachable. The mechanics are almost insultingly simple. Say their objection before they do. If you know they think you're too expensive, say it first. You're probably thinking, this costs more than you wanted to spend. Watch what happens. The objection loses all its power the moment it comes out of your mouth instead of theirs. They cannot use it as a weapon against you because you handed it over voluntarily. Name what they're feeling out loud without judging it. It sounds like you've been let down on this before. It seems like the timing is the real problem here. You are not agreeing with them. You are demonstrating that you are listening, and that changes the temperature of the room in a way no argument ever will. Repeat their last few words back as a question. They say, the budget is stretched this quarter. You say, stretched this quarter? And then you stop. Almost every time, they will explain further, and the explanation is where the real situation lives, underneath the position they walked in with. Voss draws one distinction that is worth more than everything else in this section. When someone says, "You're right," you have lost. That is what a man says to make you go away. What you are hunting for is, that's right, the moment he hears his own situation described back to him accurately and feels, for the first time, that you actually understand it. Everything softens after that. The average man walks in to be understood. The strategic man walks in to understand, because he knows understanding is not a gift he gives. It is a key he uses. No one has ever been argued into agreement. They have only ever been understood into it. Which brings us to the word you have been running from your entire adult life. You have been trained to chase yes, get them to yes, close the deal, get the agreement. It is exactly backwards, and it is costing you. Think about how you feel when a stranger is pushing you toward yes. A man on the phone, a salesman at the door, someone who wants a favor. Every question is designed to walk you into agreement, and you can feel the trap closing with each one. What do? You get defensive. You get vague. You start looking for the exit. Now think about how it feels to be allowed to say no. The pressure disappears. You relax. You become willing to actually talk. That is not a personality quirk. That is every human being. No is where a man feels safe, because no is where he feels in control. And a man who feels in control will tell you things he would never tell a man who is closing him. So stop hunting for yes and start offering no. Instead of, do you have a few minutes? Which is a small trap and everybody feels it. Try, is now a bad time? Same question, completely different experience. One asks him to give something up. The other invites him to protect himself and lets him relax enough to say no, go ahead. Instead of, does this work for you? Try, is there anything about this that doesn't work? You are inviting the objection on purpose, early, while it is still small and cheap to fix. Most men avoid that question because they are afraid of the answer. That is precisely why they get ambushed later by an objection that had been sitting there for weeks, growing. And there is a harder reason this works, which Kahneman spent a career proving. People do not weigh gains and losses evenly. Losing something hurts roughly twice as much as gaining the same thing feels good. We are built to protect far more than we are built to acquire. Read that again and apply it to how you make your offers. If you frame it as what they will get, you are pushing against the weaker of the two forces. Frame it as what they will lose by not acting, and you are working with the way the mind is actually wired. Not a trick, just arithmetic about human beings. Yes is what a man says to end a conversation. No is where he starts telling the truth. And now the last piece, which is the one that separates men who negotiate from men who simply survive negotiations. Somewhere in every deal, someone will suggest meeting in the middle. It will sound reasonable. It will sound fair. It will sound like the mature, adult, grown-up thing to do. And most men take it with relief, because the discomfort ends the moment they agree. Understand what has just happened. You wanted 100. He offered 60. You met at 80, shook hands, and both walked away telling yourselves you'd been reasonable. But the 80 was never a fair number. It was simply the middle of two numbers, and one of those numbers was chosen by him, deliberately, in advance, knowing you would split it. He did not offer 60 because 60 was what he thought it was worth. He offered 60 because 60 makes 80. This is why the whole idea of splitting the difference is a con dressed as good manners. Compromise is not two men winning. It is two men losing politely. And the one who anchored harder loses less. So what does the strategic man do instead? He does not say no. Saying no invites a fight, and fights are decided by who has more power, which may not be him. He asks the question that hands the problem back. How am I supposed to do that? That is the whole move. Said calmly, without aggression, with genuine curiosity. And it is devastating, because it does three things at once. It rejects the offer without ever refusing it. It forces him to justify a number he probably cannot justify, and it makes him solve your problem, which means he is now working on your side of the table. Most men, faced with that question, will start negotiating against themselves. They will explain. They will find flexibility they swore did not exist. They will offer something else, faster delivery, better terms, something they were holding back. You did not argue. You did not push. You asked how, and let the silence do the rest. That is what negotiating actually looks like when it is done well. It is quiet. It is uncomfortable. It contains far fewer words than you think. Fair is a word men use when they want you to stop asking. So put it together, because it is simpler than the books make it sound. Build somewhere else to go, long before you need it. Because the man who can leave has already won, and every technique in the world is a substitute for leverage he failed to build. Ask more than you tell. Let the silence sit. Make him feel understood instead of defeated, because a man defending himself is not listening. Stop chasing yes and start offering no, because no is where he stops performing. And when someone suggests meeting in the middle, ask him how you are supposed to do that. None of that requires you to be aggressive. Notice that. Not one thing on that list involves raising your voice or dominating anybody, or the kind of posturing that men who are actually weak mistake for strength. The loud man in a negotiation is almost always the one with the worst alternative. He is making noise because he has nothing else. Real leverage is quiet. It doesn't have to announce itself because it can simply leave. Now here is the part I want you to actually take with you. You will not use most of this in a boardroom. You will use it on a Tuesday, in a conversation that nobody involved will label a negotiation. Your salary, your rent, your workload, who apologizes first, what you are willing to accept from people who have learned over years exactly how much you will tolerate. Because that is the real cost of being bad at this. It is not the money. It is that men who cannot negotiate spend their whole lives accepting other people's terms without a word, and then call it being easygoing. They agree to the extra work. They accept the number. They say, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. And they build an entire life out of arrangements somebody else designed. Nobody is coming to offer you a better deal out of fairness. Fairness is not a force in the world. The terms of your life are set by what you will accept, and everyone around you has already worked out what that is. So change what you accept. Start with the next small thing that isn't worth arguing about, because those are the ones that teach people how to treat you. The average man goes into a room hoping to be treated well. The strategic man goes in knowing exactly what he will do if he isn't. And that, more than anything he says, is what he is actually negotiating with.